This awning is just a little bit low, just a tad, so I'm gonna raise this corner here. The simplest way to do that is just bring the foot of the pole back a little bit. So just slide it back a bit. So it's now the wall's a bit loose. There's a bit of slack in that, a bit of slack in this cord. And then you can just wind out as much extra pole as you want. So I'm going to add like another 2 inches here roughly. Just slide it out like about 2 inches. That ought to do it. Still enough pole there, it's nice and secure. Tighten that back up so it locks off at the height you want it. Now when you slide this back into its original position, it's going to obviously be much tighter on the guy rope here. So next thing we have to do is slack off the guy rope. And okay, so I use a specific kind of knot here. It's a real easy knot to just get rid of that. It's a really easy knot to tie. It's called a trucker's knot because back in the days when people use rope a lot in transport, this is how truckies used to tie their loads down. And basically it allows you to slide this knot and tighten it as much as you want, or loosen it really easily. It's just got a real easy slip thing there. Since we're here, I'm going to show you how to tie this knot. It's a real easy one. First I'll just get that out of there, and I'll take this apart. And this is one of the beauties of this knot. If you want to get rid of it, it's actually really easy to get rid of too. You just pull the two ends apart and whoop, gone. Okay, so we've got a rope, we've got a peg in the ground here, as you can see. Rope goes around the peg. There's the free end. Right, so once you've got this set up, you've got your peg, you've got your rope, that's running up to the top of your pole there, okay? Once you've got that set up, you just take your hand here and make a loop in the rope like that. And once you've got that loop, you grab the rope below the loop, through the loop like that, and you just pull it through and pull that down towards the ground. And you can see how the loop we made in the cord originally is tightening down onto that. Once you've done that, you want to take your free end that's gone around the peg in the ground, tuck that through that loop, and that's what you're going to tighten down on. That's it. It's such an easy knot to tie. It takes seconds once you know how to do it, and it's the most secure and most easy to adjust knot for tent ropes. I swear to God, there's no better way to do it, because once you've got that set up, you can adjust it all day long, multiple times. You can leave it tied up like this for months, and it's never going to get so tight here that you won't be able to undo it. So it's really easy to get rid of when you want to lose it as well. To finish off, okay, so we've made it a little bit slack, but to finish off, to keep that from sliding, just take the free end of the rope around. We're pinching here. That's our tensioning point, right? So we're pinching there, so that can't slide away. You can see how easy that is for me to hold the weight. It's just a matter of pinching it with 2 fingers, so it makes it easy to adjust. You've got a lot of leverage here. Take that around the back and make a loop around the whole thing there and just cinch that, okay? And that's it. That's now rock solid. You won't be able to pull that apart. No matter how hard you pull on that, it's not going to come apart. Okay, and when you come along, you want to adjust it again, you just slip that quick release knot out, boop, and you're back to having leverage again, where you can slide, adjust it as much as you want, go up and down all day long. See how that's moving the corner of the pole. Okay, so now having done all that, that's our little knot tutorial out of the way. I'm just going to make some slack here, make that loose so that I can go back and move the pole back into its original position. So come back over here. We're going to take this pole and slide it back into the corner there, back where it was originally. And now, if I have a look up at this corner, you can see now that's a better height for me. I'll be able to walk under there easily now. We know the pole's the right length now, but we step back, of course. What we can see, because I've slacked off the rope, I've slacked off the guy rope in that corner, so now that whole corner of the tent's a bit saggy. You can see that, right? It's all sagging because there's not enough tension on that rope to hold it in place. So that's when we come back to the foot of the pole here, okay, and we slip that slip knot we made before, and now we're ready to tighten this up. And when you pull on this, it makes it really easy because you've got a lot of leverage now. It's doubled back on itself, so you've got tons of leverage. And you pull on that rope, and as you do that, you can see at the top of the tent there how it's tightening up the whole structure of the corner of the tent. Make that nice and firm. With tents, you have to use a little bit of judgment about the amount of pressure you apply. You've got a number of things to think about. You don't want to pull this so tight that it's going to tear the tent or distort its shape, and at the same time you don't want to pull it so tight that it's going to pull the peg out of the ground either. I mean, I know this peg's not going to come out of the ground because it's a long peg and the ground's really hard here, but in some circumstances, if the ground's wet or it's sandy and stuff like that, you have to think about, like, how much pressure can I put on this peg as well. But you want it, generally speaking, you want your tent guy ropes to be tight enough that you can't pull it tight any more than you can with two fingers. Like, I'm just grabbing that there, pulling down on that. It's got a bit of a twang in it, you know, and you flick it, sounds like a bit of a boing in it. I don't know how else to put that. It's a bit springy, you want that. Okay, so I've got that set where I want it. I'll pinch that there, loop that around, pull that through, and just cinch that up there. And keep that loop like the bow on your shoes, so that when you come back you can get rid of it real quick too. You finish it off with one more loose loop around there, just to stop it coming undone too easily. That's it. So now we step back again and have a look at the tent. You can see now how it's tensioned up that corner, giving the roof back its proper nice square shape. Very important. That's really important, because if your roof isn't nice and taut and squared away like that, when it rains heavily, the water's all going to pool on it, and the weight of the water is going to distort all the roof. It's going to gather up there in puddles, and that's when tents get destroyed. It's when rain falls on them, and first a little bit will pull. If there's like a saggy part, a little bit will pull in that saggy part, and that weight will pull it down, and then the saggy part will get bigger because of that weight, and then more water will pull, and it becomes a vicious cycle. It gets exponential. You know, more water gathers there, the more it pulls down the tent, and the more weight is applied, and sooner or later the whole thing is just going to tear or collapse, or something bad's going to happen. You're going to wake up in a puddle. That's the net result. We don't want that. Yeah, okay, so because I've adjusted that corner, I'm just going to walk around all the whole tent now and check the shape in a few different angles, make sure everything's looking ship shape. It's not sagging like crazy anywhere. This one looks a little bit, oh no, that's all right, that's fine. Might need to change the angle of that rope a little bit. Pull it down a bit more that way, I think. See there how that changes the shape of the front edge there? I think that peg needs to come across about 18 inches to the left there. Change the angle on that. Get the tension in the right direction. And I might, while I'm at it, I might raise that middle pole a little bit as well. Yeah, I think I want to raise that middle pole just a little bit to get that saggy line out of the front there. So same thing, just come back here, slide this one back a little bit. So we get some slack on it. Add another about 2 inches here. Slack that off. Just slide that out about 2 inches. That looks about right. Tighten that back up again. Same thing over here with the guy rope as well. Slack this one off. And then I can just take the tension up here when I need to. Slack that off for now so I can put the pole back into a vertical position. There we go, that's better. Okay, let's see how that's adjusted the shape up there. Oh yeah, that looks a lot straighter now. That line's right. Okay. Tension this back up. Yep, seems about right. Feels about right. Right. Yep, looking good. Let's take a step back and have a look at that. See how that looks. Yep. That looks square at the front. And then we checked it. The roof ridge has got the right curve on it, and that looks good. That looks nice and taut now up the top there. Plenty of tension in this line. It's nice and springy. That's what we want. Now let's have a look at this one. Yep, that one looks good too. That's nice and springy. The shape on that edge is good. You've got a nice straight line from the peak down to this corner, and you've got a pretty nice straight line across here between these two. Tension on this is good too. Give that a pull. I can feel there's good tension on that. That's going to drain well off that edge. Come around here, check this one. Yep, same. That's got a nice tensed feel to it. Nice and taut. This corner's looking pretty good too now. I don't know if I need to change. I could just change that angle just a little bit. That would be a good thing. Just pop the peg like there, and that will just make that corner perfect, because it'll stop that. Yeah, you can see the difference, right? When I move that corner angle across a little bit, it just perfects takes the ridges out of that roof canvas, and it straightens up that corner's angles as well. So we'll go to the toolbox, and we're gonna grab a trusty $8 tomahawk, which I mostly use as a hammer. Come around here. Right, so we're going to slack off this guy rope just a bit. Slack that off there, and then we've got enough slack. Pull this peg out. Pull the peg out of the ground. Well, this ground really is. Rips your peg really well. You can't even get that one up. That's so tightly stuck in the ground. Wow, so tightly stuck in the ground. I'll have to tap that a little bit with the tomahawk to slack it off a bit. It's probably got some rust going there too. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so it's a bit rusty. Once your tent pegs get a bit rusty like that, the rough texture even makes them even more strongly stuck in the ground. It's not a bad thing. I mean, it's great from a structural point of view. You don't want your tent pegs pulling out easily. So anyway, I'm going to move that across here just like that. It's about 18 inches from its original position. That's going to be a better angle. That's where I want that peg. So I'll just set that where I want it, and then very important to put an angle on your peg. You never drive it straight into the ground like that. Okay, you always lean it away from the tent, so you get a stronger. That is much stronger when it's in the ground. It's much less likely to pull out. If it's like this, It's far more likely to pull out of the ground, especially if it's wet or sandy. You want your peg at about a 45-degree angle, ideally. There we go. Hope there's not a big rock there. Seems to be going okay. The ground here is pretty rocky. Sometimes it's hard to... There we go. Get it started. Yes, there's something pretty rocky down there. The peg's finding its way around the rocks. It's a good thing about these really solid steel pegs. You can really bash them and they will find a way around smaller rocks. Unless you hit something really big, then you're going to get stuck. But yeah, there we go. Make sure that's... There we go. So I really had to bash that into the ground, so you know that's not going to come loose easily. So rope's very slack. That's all right. We'll come here. We'll get the slip knot, and we'll just tension that right up. There we go. That's looking good, isn't it? Got just enough tension on that. When you're setting the corners of your tent for the first time, like a new position, you can tighten that up pretty hard because it's going to naturally stretch a tiny bit. And knots will naturally just give you a little once you've set it up. So you get it as tight as you can to start with, and it's going to be just the right amount of slack after a few days or even a few hours. There we go. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Got nice straight lines, good geometry. Yeah, that's really good. Very important that there's an angle from the peak of the tent down towards all the edges. You always want the water to run off away to the edges of the tent. That's super important. You never want to have saggy sections or flat areas, especially like flat roofs on the tops of tents. That's a disaster. That's going to be catching rain and creating damage for sure. So always need to have steep drainage angles, straight edges, and plenty of tension in your guy ropes to keep everything nice and taut. You can see there's a few little like ridges here in this corner because of just the way the ground is and the way the shape of the tent is like not perfectly square and the ground isn't perfectly flat. But that's okay because they act like gutters and the rain still runs away down to the edge of the tent. And as long as it's running to the edge of the tent, you're all good. Yeah, looking pretty good. Yeah, and that result of all that is now my two main access points to the veranda here at the front edge by the kitchen, and over here where I go out the other side to the bath area and the clothesline. All those awning heights are now well above my head height, and that's going to make things much more comfortable when I'm walking around at home.